Hello, welcome back to the channel. Thank you as always for tuning in. Hope everyone's doing all right. So straight in, if you've clicked on this video, as per the title, you'll know exactly what it's all about. I'll just give you a little bit of a backstory of the inspiration behind the video. A couple of months ago, I was in a nearby supermarket, big supermarket that had a travelator that goes up. And as I was going up the travelator, on the one next to me going down was a gent, and he had a T-shirt on and it had a slogan on it, and I spotted it. And I think you can work out what that slogan actually said. I found it quite amusing, and I actually had a look online. I didn't really intend to wear it myself, and yet you can buy them online. I'm not affiliated with them. You know, this is not my merchandise. I'm just showing you that these T-shirts definitely exist. But afterwards, it really, really got me thinking, because first of all, I kind of thought, wow, I completely and totally relate to that. And secondly, the fact that someone else is wearing it on a T-shirt. The fact is that I'm possibly not alone in my views and opinions on this topic. And of course, after I got thinking about it, I was like, ding, that would make quite a good video. So here it is. So what I aim to do, I just want to show you a few artists where I clearly just listened to the early stuff. And I just want to give some examples and thoughts. Before I start, I really want to make the emphasis on this, that these are my opinions. I'm not having a go at these bands at all, and every one of these artists and bands I have the utmost respect for and really, really like. But I've just got an opinion about their latter work. So please don't get upset. I'm not saying it's bad. It is just purely my opinion. It is not a fact. So let's get started. Right. Prime example here, absolute prime example of early listenings only. Great Black Sabbath. There we go. Debut album and Sabotage from 1975. In my opinion, the best two. So I would argue, and I actually think this is not just my opinion, I think this is a matter of fact. I would argue to the hilt that Black Sabbath are one of the most influential bands in recorded musical history. The fact how the influence they've had on all genres of metal is completely undeniable. They are absolutely brilliant. And their reputation that they still hold to this day is utterly well-deserved. I adore the first six records, 1970 to 1975, and you've got 4 in between. An absolutely stellar run of albums, just flawless. Each one of them's brilliant. I think I probably could do a ranking if pushed, but it would be difficult. After Sabotage in 1975, for me, I think things started to go a little bit downhill. We got the next album called Technical Ecstasy, which I don't mind. I haven't played it for a while. I must dig it out and give it another listen. But it's certainly going down a very, very different path, more experimental, just not quite the sort of, doomy riff that Sabbath were known for. We then get Never Say Die, which I don't believe is a very popular album anyway. I know it's certainly not popular in the band. Ozzy Osbourne, I know, has called it a disgusting album. That's his words, not mine. And after that, Ozzy left. Ozzy left for the time being. Change of lineup. Ronnie James Dio joined. Now, me being the stubborn person that I am, I've always just thought that no Ozzy, no Sabbath, and that's it. I've always thought that. Many have suggested that I get into the Ronnie James Dio albums, Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell. I know that they're very, very popular, and I haven't ruled them out. I don't know. I just find it difficult when you've got such stellar albums like this. and this, which are just among my absolute complete favourites of all time. If I just want to listen to Sabbath, I'll just go and put one of the first 6 on. I just feel that'll do almost. Is it wrong of me? Is it wrong of me to think like that? I just can't help it. I just can't help it. But there we go. We'll see. We'll see how things pan out. I mean, Sabbath later on, they kept changing lineup, and eventually it looks like what they really sort of kind of turned into the Tony Iommi band. And that really doesn't interest me at all. Really doesn't interest me. I could be missing out. But there we are. Right, next example. From the early 70s, Barkley James Harvest, with Baby James Harvest, and a compilation. I was not meant to get this one out. I was meant to get another one out, but here it is. There we go. Compilation of their early singles. So it's a funny thing with this band. So they were signed to Harvest Records, who a few of you know I'm a big fan of, my favourite record label, and Barkley James Harvest are great on them. 4 really, really good albums. Progressive band, they're what I would call prog light, diet prog. They're kind of, they're not the most in-your-face experimental band at all. They're quite soft. They have their heavy moments, but they've almost got folky elements. They use orchestra. They are on the softer side of prog, probably more palatable, if you're not into that sort of thing. After the 4 albums for Harvest, they had a small hiatus. I think things had gone wrong, and they switched to Polydor, and they went on for decades, dozens and dozens of albums. Unfortunately, at that point, that's when I stopped listening. I have owned some of the later BJH albums. I just couldn't get into them. I mean, they're all right, and I've spoken to people who absolutely adore them. They think, I remember one record dealer once, he said they're his best band. He's just an absolute completist, and that's absolutely fine. But, even when they were in the softer years, they had a bit of edge to them. There was a bit of edge. And I just felt that when they switched to Polydor, not because of that switch, obviously that was a direction they would take anyway, they just lost that edge and became kind of too soft. It was just, to my ears, just too mainstream. What do I know? I mean, I see their albums everywhere. They did well. I think they sold very moderately in this country. I believe in Germany they had a very big following. That's where they were big. In this country, they were probably still, in terms of sales, a second-tier prog band, but they still had a very successful career. But I'm just not interested. If someone was to say, and this is the thing I think about, if someone was to say to me, do you like Barkley James Harvest, George? I'd be like, yes, oh yeah. But do I? If you're only listening to 2 years of their career, can you honestly say that you're a fan? I don't know. It's just something that's subject to debate. Strange. Right, next up, very popular, Roxy Music. Roxy Music. What can I say about them? Hugely influential, always been very popular. I mean, back in the day, the punks liked Roxy Music, didn't they? No one's ever had a go at them, have they? And quite rightly so. You don't bash Roxy Music like people sort of bash the prog bands. They've always been very well liked. Here we go. Second album, For Your Pleasure. I consider this their best. And then Siren from 1975, containing the big hit Love Is the Drug. I was going a little bit more commercial on this one. So the thing is with Roxy Music, after Siren, I don't think they ever technically split up. They had a bit of a hiatus. I know Brian Ferry was doing his own solo thing, and the other members, they had various projects going on at the time. Yeah, going off and working with other musicians, working with other bands. But they did reconvene in the late 70s and back into the early 80s, and obviously they've reformed and retoured, as most of these bands do. For me, we've got 2 very, very distinct periods. And I mean, the Roxy Music that reformed in the late 70s, they're just not the same band. They're really not. They did the albums Flesh and Blood, Avalon, and it's I don't quite know how popular these albums are. I know people must listen to them. I don't think they're as revered as this in general. I don't think. But for me, they are just ultra smooth. I do find they've sort of, I know Brian Ferry was always really the leader of this band. He was the front man. He wrote all of the tunes, or at least co-wrote all of the tunes. But for me, it was just a completely different band, and it's so ultra smooth. It's not for me. It kind of sounds like it would appeal more to the emerging yuppies of the 80s in a strange way. I mean, this early incarnation, they had edge. They were sort of, they were unique. They this sounds really sort of jagged and metallic. You can see how it has an influence on punk. Very, very distinct. But after the first 5, that's it. I'm kind of done, I'm afraid. I hold them in very very high regard as a band. But that is as far as I go, I'm afraid. Oh, Stranglers, here we go. Prime example. They're all prime examples at the end of the day. The debut records. Okay, so when I got into the Stranglers, I first heard them properly, because I knew a couple of their songs, but I probably first heard them from a compilation album. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but I know it was released probably in the early 90s. It's a compilation album that friends of mine in a shared house they lived had on CD. And among other CDs that they had, this one got played an awful lot. I can remember at the time, because the CD is in chronological order, I remember the first track on it was Peaches, and it's the hits, it's the singles, it's a singles compilation, and it goes right up to 1990, where it seems to kind of, though the singles from that period seem to get the lion's share towards the end of the album. But I can always remember the CD often got turned off halfway through, because what can I say, that the kind of quality of the music for me, and I think everyone in that house and that room night after night, took a bit of a dip, to be honest with you. I think the Stranglers are fantastic, absolutely fantastic. The fact that they defy category, I was actually chatting about them with a friend of mine the other night, the fact that they're punk, but they're not a punk band. They were just caught up in it, but they had that attitude, they had that anger, they had the controversy, and apart from being, really, really solid musicians, having that fantastic keyboard from Dave Greenfield, and then having some amazing hit singles, Golden Brown, which I've talked about, absolutely amazing. The problem for me is, even by, when they did Golden Brown, they did the album La Folie, which I really love. But even then, it's starting to take a bit of a poppy turn. You've got production from Tony Visconti, which gives it a really bright sound, but the edge is still there. I think when we get to this album, which is Feline, from 83, I think, that's a transition album. It's not a bad record. I need to listen to it again. I think the last time I listened to it, I found it sort of a little bit, like the band sound is sort of weary, if I'm honest with you. And again, we've got a lineup change. They were stitched up by Liberty Records, who I think had moved over to EMI. I think that's as I understand it. So they moved to Epic. And it sometimes seems that a label change can just change the dynamic of the band. And unfortunately, sort of after this, the single, they went so mainstream. Not bad. There's some nice kind of pretty tunes, but the edge is gone, the controversy's gone, the sheer anger's gone. They've turned into something completely different. And they still retain the same lineup. They kept the same lineup until 1990. Right the way through. And they're still popular, they're still selling records, they're still having singles in the charts, but to me, it's just not the Stranglers. You listen to a track like Always the Sun, it's just a nice track, it's all right, but compare it to Peaches or anything from this album, it's just, I don't know. I just don't think it's as good, but it's just my opinion. Again, just my opinion. I don't profess to be right. It's just something in my head. And again, it's all the early stuff. All the early stuff. It's strange. Okay. Yet another one that popped into my head. Iron Maiden. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son here. And Somewhere in Time. I love that album cover. I don't think it's one of their better albums, but that album, I think I've always loved that album cover. That is their best one, I think. That really is good. So, again, we've got, Seventh Son, seventh album. So they've started off, they've had a few lineup changes, haven't they, by then? You've got to remember that the first two albums were Paul Di'Anno as a vocalist. I mean, I think Paul Di'Anno was an absolutely brilliant frontman. He had his own style, a brilliant voice, and brilliant charisma. But there are issues, and clearly the lineup change did him good to Bruce Dickinson. I mean, I think for Maiden, for their sort of music, he really was the man for the job. So, yeah, even with lineup changes, we're still in the, what we call the early years. It's all great. It's all fine. I think after this record, they did a couple of albums that, to my ears, maybe to other people's, took a bit of a dip. Then Bruce Dickinson left for the first time. He has, of course, since rejoined. And we got the singer Blaze Bayley. Now, at that stage, it's almost like the chain's broken. I can remember when all this was going on and it was all like, oh my God, I've got a new singer, blah, blah, blah. I'll confess to you, I haven't heard the albums. I haven't heard the albums of Blaze Bayley. I probably never will. By then, I'd lost interest, not in Iron Maiden as a band, but their ongoing career. I just wasn't bothered. And then Bruce rejoined, they continued. I've been recommended albums. Guilty as charged. I haven't bothered listening to them. I just sometimes feel like, I've got 7 really decent albums here. You kind of know what you're getting with Iron Maiden. And other friends of mine have kind of said, they do stick to a formula. You know what you're going to get. There's nothing new kind of later on. And it's just all the Iron Maiden I need. I don't know what to say. Am I missing out? You tell me. I think I should point out at this stage that when I get into any artist or album or music, I don't stream it. I do stream. I stream bands and albums that I already know. If I'm kind of in the kitchen doing some washing up, doing a bit of cooking, and I'm not going to put a record on, I want to play a few tracks or whatever, or I'm just got a bit of time, I'll put a little playlist on, I'll put a few tracks on, I'll stream. I do it that way. But checking artists out, I go in blind. So I could stream later Iron Maiden albums or any later albums by anyone I've mentioned, check them out, see what I think. I just don't. I go in and I'll buy the record, and if I don't like the record, I sell it. I get my money back for it. That's how I work. Do other people do this? Other vinyl collectors, what do you do? I'm very interested to hear. Okay. Right. This one might even be this even might be sacrilegious. I actually feel guilty. Yeah. Okay. No introduction needed. Brilliant. Hunky Dory, Man Who Sold the World, David Bowie, best 2 albums. That's my opinion. Best 2 albums. Scary Monsters, extremely good. 1980, extremely good. I stop here. Yeah, a brilliant run of records in the 70s. Some better than others. Again, label change, wasn't it? He left RCA. I think he joined EMI. I'd imagine he's had various label changes since then. To me, to my ears, it just doesn't appeal. soon as Let's Dance came out and kind of everything that followed through that decade, I'm not interested. Not interested. Again, I remember, my mum had a cassette of Best of Bowie. I think it was called Changes Bowie, released. And the latter years never got played. it just stopped. By the time we hit Ashes to Ashes, it just didn't get played. There was no interest there, and it sounds sacrilege because Bowie is just obviously he's just remarkable. He's one of these artists I do feel that certainly bounced back a lot towards the end of his career. I have been recommended Heathen. I've heard bits from, is it The Next Day or The Last Day? The Next Day, isn't it? And of course, Black Star, which, I mean, the whole the story surrounding the release of that is just mind blowing. And they're not bad. They're not bad tracks, but I'd just rather listen to this or this. I just think they're better. I can't help myself. Sorry. And finally, I've got a very late edition here. So I'd thought about this video. Thought it through, decided on the artist I was going to talk about, and I'm putting a late entry in because last week I gave a debut spin to this album. It's by UK Subs, Diminished Responsibility from 1981. I bought it a good few months ago now and finally spun it. And it's a punk record and it's really heavy. What's great about it is I think by now it's a few albums in, so the band is really, it's not kind of like punks who are just a little bit rusty on the instruments. They've tightened up. They almost sound like an amazing hard rock band. I'm sitting there listening to it and going, God, this is a bit of all right. I'll listen to this again. Definitely listen to this again. Meanwhile, out comes my phone onto Discogs. I go and I'm like, they've probably done a few others. I have got one other earlier album by then. I was like, what else have they done? There must be a couple of other records I can check out. They've been going, they've done dozens. I honestly didn't know much about them. They've done dozens of records, going years, as far as I'm aware, still going now. It doesn't look like they ever stopped. They've just gone on and on and on. Obviously got a loyal following. Anyway, I scrolled all the way through their discography on Discogs, put a watch on, couple of records without really thinking, and of course, what have I done? I've immediately gone to the early 80s and just stopped without thinking. And as soon as I'd done it, I'm like, I'm at it again. I just automatically go into it. I look at a record they might have made in the 90s, and I'm like, I doubt it will be as good as this. I very much doubt it. Do I want to get everything by them? Absolutely not. No. This is the sort of band I'd be happy to own 4 or 5 albums by, and that will kind of do. I'm just not a completist like that. But ultimately, I'm just not if I came across an album of theirs from 1995, I wouldn't buy it. I just wouldn't. So this is not an exhaustive list. It's there are plenty of other artists I could have included in this, but I must say there are plenty of exceptions as well. There are a good few artists in my collection who I like so much that I have gone out and really been a completist or very, very near it. So it's not all like that, but just one of those things. It's what these videos are all about. I just feel like I need to get it off my chest. I'll be interested to hear from you. Do you completely disagree? Do you think I'm mad? Am I missing out? Do you do the same thing? I'd love to hear from you. Once again, don't get offended. I'm not having a go at any of these bands. I'm not having a go at their later careers. They work hard. They make good. They're good records. People buy them. People like them. They're worthwhile. It's just me at the end of the day. So, thanks as always for watching. Just to finish off, and this came to me in the middle of the video when I was talking about inspirations. Another inspiration for this video, apart from the bloke in the supermarket with a T-shirt, was a couple of videos by Spinning Prog. channel I really like, and they did albums. They did videos called "When Did Genesis Go Bad" and "When Did Yes Go Bad," and they went through the entire careers and kind of did the same thing. They kind of pinpointed when they stopped listening to these bands, Genesis and Yes. And I agreed with them wholeheartedly. And as a consequence, I mean, Genesis was the most obvious choice to actually include in this list. But because I think the Spinning Prog channel covered it so well, I didn't. So there we go. Yeah, a late mention. Sorry, I should have mentioned those at the beginning. But anyway, right, that's all I've got to say. Thanks, as always, for watching. I will be back with more videos in the near future, of course. Again, love to hear from you. What do you reckon? Please comment. Give me your thoughts. Till the meantime, take care and see you all soon.